Hi everybody, my name is Haydn and welcome to my channel. I'm a full-time software engineer currently working remote. In this video we're going to be kicking off our project and installing Redux into our React application. So in this video what we're going to do is basically install Redux into our application. We're going to kind of set up the framework for our app, our React app, and kind of have all the different components and containers and reducers and stuff. I'll explain what they are in a second. Build that into our application so we're ready to go, so when I push out these tutorials we can just add bits in easy fashion. Let's just do a quick whistle-stop tour of Redux before we kick off. So Redux is a global store for our React application. So as you know, each React component can have state, and depending on if that state changes, the component itself in React will re-render. What Redux is a global store that you can basically, each component can subscribe to, and when state in that store changes that they are subscribed to, they will change. So it's a really good way to, for example, let's say you have like a tree of a page with which has a sub page in it, which has a divider, a card, a button in it, and then when you click that button, rather than passing that state all the way back up the tree into a different component that needs to change, you just update the store, and then a different component somewhere else in your app listens to that part of the store and will update as well. So it's basically global state management. Okay, cool. So if you was following on in the last video, you'll be up to this point here where we've got Ant designed, installed, and ready to go for our website. So what we're basically going to be building is this top half of the section here, which is kind of the title, and then this component here that when I press new name, the component updates. So if we just quickly look about what's going on here, if I go to the console and do store.getState, which you can probably see here, has an object of stuff in it. This is the React global state, or what they call the React store, and that has state in it with different, you can see like forename, surname there, and that's basically when I click this button, I fire off an action which hits a reducer, which updates the store and puts Clifton into the forename of the current name part of the store, and then this component here subscribes to that part of the store, and when that changes, the component will re-render and render with that name on the screen. So that's what we're going to create in this video. Okay, cool. So if you're at this point here, you should kind of have what we have here. So let's just kind of get rid of all of this because we don't actually need any of this. So we should basically just have a blank page. We can get rid of that. Before we kick off, I want to create a couple folders. So I want to create a folder called actions. I want to create a folder called reducers, or another one called containers, be what we need for right now. So yeah. So in Redux, you have these things called actions, which are kind of just like little bits of data structure which describe an action that has happened. Reducers are the things that update the store in Redux. So what we'll do is we'll fire off an action. That action hits a reducer, and then that reducer will do, depending on what the action is, do some sort of updating to the store. So that's how that happens. And then what we do is we make our components in containers. So we basically wrap our component in a container, and that container will say, right, I'm subscribing to this property in the store, and I will pass that through to my component, and when that changes, I will re-render my component. It will come a lot clearer when we do it, but I just want to get this in kind of initial layout. So you should have actions, components, containers, reducers, all in the source directory of your project. But we need to install this first, so I just want to do npm install Redux, and I also want to install another package called React Emoji Renderer, because we get this nice little baby icon at the top. So npm install Redux and React Emoji Renderer, and wait for them to install. Lovely job, cool. So they are installed now. So if we go over to our package.json, you can see now I've got Redux installed, and I've got Ant design installed. React Emoji Renderer installed as well. Okay, cool. So now they have been installed. We obviously need to stop the app and restart it, because for those changes to take effect. So that will restart a new session for us. So that should restart soon. So what we need to do now is basically we need to kind of like wrap our app in the Redux store object so that we have it. Because obviously at the minute when I go, store.getState, you can see store reference error, nothing defined. Just about to see that there. So in order to do that, we need to come into index.js and we need to say import create store from Redux, like so. So that is our create store, and then I'm going to say const store is equal to create store, and this is going to take our reducers, but for now let's just leave it like so. So we have created our store, but we also need to import I think it's provider from React Redux. Oh, that is actually, yep, okay, apologies about that. We do need to install one more dependency. So we need to say npm install React Redux. That should go off and do its thing. But whilst that's installing, yes, we need to basically import provider from React Redux, and then we basically need to say provider store is equal to the store we've just created. There we go. Cool, that's that done. Let's go back to Git. Let's stop that. Excuse me. So that's obviously installed. Make a new terminal. npm start. That will start up a new version for us. And you can see if I go to package.ocean as well, now we'll have React Redux as well as just Redux on its own. Yeah, so the issue here is it expects like reducers in our store, but we haven't got any reducers yet. So we basically said we want you to create a store and the shape of the store should look like X, but we've not like given it the shape of the store yet. So what I want you to do is come into reducers and make a file called index.js. And in this file, we're going to create our reducers. So I want to say import combine reducers from Redux, like so. And then I want you to say export default combine reducers. And this is going to be the shape of our store. Back to index.js. Jump around here, and I want to say import reducers from reducers, and then we can put our reducers in there. Refresh this, and you can see we have cleared that error, because we basically said like our store is now going to look like this, and look like this is currently as an empty dictionary, so we basically our store is empty. But you can still see if I go store.getState, it still doesn't know what store is. And the kind of like the quickest, easiest way to do this is we basically can say store equals store. And then if we refresh this now, if I go store, you can see it's our kind of React store. And if I say get state on that, you can see it's our empty object, which is exactly the same as this bad boy here. Okay, so you can see like this part of our app basically holds the current name. So when I click this button, the name changes. So this is connected to a part of the store that we need to create. So in order to create that part of the store, what we need to do is come into here and make basically a reducer. So what I'm going to say is we have the current name reducer points to the current name reducer. And let's come up here and let's make the current name reducer. So reducers are basically a function that kind of takes some initial state. So let's call our state this. And an action, and they perform a operation on them in order to kind of update the store. So we basically are going to have two. So for this current name, we're basically going to have two operations. We're going to be able to update the first name or update the forename or the surname. So I'm going to say if action.type is equal to set, let's say current forename. Then what I want to do is say return object dot assign this object the state, and I'm going to say for name is equal to action dot payload. So basically this is saying, right, if the action we receive is of type, so if it has a type property on it of set current forename, then we're going to update an empty object and the state with the action.payload, so there'll be a payload inside the object. I'm also going to say else if. This will all kind of come clearer as we kind of build this up, but at the start I kind of just have to kind of churn out a fair bit of code to get it up and working. So we're going to say another one is set current surname, and if this action exists, then we kind of want to do exactly the same here. But instead of forename, we want to do surname. Finally, we want to return state. So what I'm going to do is kind of give a initial state to this. So the initial state for this will be, let's say, forename? Let's say Joe, and surname is equal to blogs. And I'm going to say my initial state is this. So if you haven't got anything, the state is going to be this. If you get these actions, do this. Otherwise, just return state. So then in our current reducer, the current name section will be like this. So now if I come over here, refresh this, go into here, say store.get state, you can see we've got a new entry now into our Redux store of current name, which is this name here. So this dictionary, basically, object in JavaScript is this name here. And that maps to a object that has Joe Blogs, which you can see is our initial state. So what you can see here is when the app starts up, it basically fires off this method. And because there's no action, this is none of these get hit, so we just return state, and state is our initial state. So you can see if I change this to Haydn blogs and then do store.get state, current name now is Haydn blogs, sorry, didn't save. Haydn blogs, there you go. So you can see that this initial state is now getting passed through, and we can have now components that look at that state and re-render. If so, and we can fire up actions that will update this state, which we'll wire in later. So that is basically the fundamental of just getting a store up and running. So happy days. So let's do these. So in reducers, obviously we're going to get two types of actions: set current first name and surname. So let's go. That's why I create these actions folder. So let's go into actions and make it index.js. And basically what I want you to do is create two methods that look like this, that take a payload and just pop the payload into a dictionary and return, this is our type, and then let's export these as well down here. So we're exporting these actions now, so we can use these actions. So you can see, if I pop that down there, it might be easier to see actually. Let's get rid of that. So you can see in our reducer now, we're going to get these actions. These actions are going to be basically these objects here. And we're going to say, right, if the type of them is set current forename, which is obviously set current forename, then return an object that takes the state and then mutates the state by adding forename action.payload. So whatever payload is here in the object will get mapped to the state, and that will be what's in our store. Yeah, so it's a little bit awkward to get your kind of head around, but basically, so now we have Redux set up, we can start building this part of the website. So I'm going to come into app.jsx, let's get rid of this, let's go to this so you can see what I'm doing. Let's create so first what we need to create is that little headline, and let's basically create an emoji from React emoji renderer, and we're going to have the text of baby, which is the emoji, and then we'll say name generator baby close brackets emoji at the top. Fantastic, that's all we need. And then next, what I want to do is create we need to create a name container. So this is why I asked you to make a container. So let's come into container and create a new file called namecontainer.js. Import name container from containers/name container. And that should have our name container. So what is a container? So obviously a React component is basically like some React JSX code, whereas a container is basically you can push properties in from the Redux store into the component before it renders. Basically like pre-processing of a component is kind of how you could think of it. So in order to do this, we need to say, we need to make an object which is kind of map the state to props, which is mapping the state in the Redux store to properties in the React component that we're going to render. So let's do it like this. And basically we want to take forename, so we want to pass in forename to the component, so from the Redux store to the component, and we do that by saying state. And if you remember, we stored that in the current name part of state under the forename section. And similarly, we can do the same for name. So that's basically all you need to do. And then we say export default. So we need to import this connect, which is, you see, comes from Redux. So it's basically connecting this component to our React component. And this takes two, which is map state to props. And the other one is map dispatch to props, which is like dispatching actions, which is if you want to change something, you dispatch that. Currently, all this does is display, so we can just put null there for the moment. And then the last thing we need to pipe kind of onto this is our component, which I'm going to call names. So then if we come into components and make a new folder called names, and then inside that, you kind of know the drill here, index.js, names.jsx. and names.css. So this is going to say, in index.js, we're going to say import names from names. If you watch my previous tutorials, you've kind of seen this stuff before. So that's that done. And then inside names, so let's now make a functional component. So I'm going to say function names is return a section of hello, export default names. Here we also want to obviously import names.css, which is inside the same folder. Yeah, that's pretty much all we need to do. What's going on here? Files compile, names container. So go to our names container. Names is not imported right yet. Fair. So import names from components / names. Can't resolve names.css. /. Cool, there we go. So we have hello there. But obviously you can see in our store, look at state, we have current name and surname of Haydn blogs, which is obviously what we could put in our initial state in our reducers. So if I open up reducers, you can see that is that there. But we made this container which basically passes forename and surname through to our names component. So in our names component now, if we get the props for this, if I pull out forename and surname from props, like so, and then here say, let's call this a section class, first name, this can be forename, let's call this surname, like so, and you can say bosh there, Haydn Joe blogs. Because that is now pulling in from our store and passing these through to this component. So you can see that this component now is linked to the store because it's basically reading the store and then reading the store, getting this part out from the state, or the store, whatever you want to call it, getting this part for the current name forename out and passing it through to our names component, which is coming into props here, which is then getting passed through, and all's good. And I can even like doubly prove this to you if I go into reducers.index and change this to, back to Joe blogs, and my website refreshes. You can see that Joe blogs is there. Change that back to Haydn, and even let's just check, surname software. Cool, perfect. So it's now being passed through. So that's the basics of Redux. Basically, they're set up. Cool. So let's style this a little bit now. Font size, isn't it? Font size is extra large. Nice. There we go. So we have basically linked our Redux store state to our website. So you can see in state store.get state. You see our current names reducer has Haydn SWE forename surname, and that's now being passed into this component here. There you go. So there's kind of like a crash course on doing that. There we go. So we've kind of created the initial components for our website now, or at least the the kind of current name component, and that's being wired in from Redux. Bit of a beastie video, but it's kind of like the most fundamental part of Redux is you have a store that stores all your information. You update that store by firing off actions that hit reducers. The reducers actually take those actions and update the store, and then obviously persist that into the store, and then you connect your React components to the store using that connect function and map state to props. So map the state in the store to properties that are passed into the function, which we've kind of seen there. So that's a lot to kind of all take into one video, but I hope that made sense. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. Obviously, we're going to be building the entire website throughout more and adding more components, more complexity with Redux. So we'll obviously walk through step by step. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. See ya.